So hello everyone, welcome to my IELTS stream, and in today's video we are going to see how to write an advantages and disadvantages essay step by step. It is a category of essay which is relatively easier, but still, as we are going to take little steps ahead in our journey to IELTS, we want to start with this essay. So for today, your essay category is advantages and disadvantages. To put it more specifically, it is what are the advantages and disadvantages. We are not looking at an outweigh question. We are just looking at the simple category, what are the advantages and disadvantages. And the purpose of today's video is to learn about structure, some vocabulary, learn how to write effective examples, and learn how to write grammar that is going to get you better bands. So let's move ahead and see what question we are going to look at today. So the question for today is, in some countries, young people are encouraged to work or travel for a year between finishing high school and starting university studies. So like in our previous video, I'm going to tell you again that every IELTS question has two parts. One is the concept and the other is the question or the task. So the concept is always written first. It is our topic and we are supposed to think about it and write about it. Whereas the task is the one written after the concept. And the task for today is discuss the advantages and disadvantages for people who decided to do this. So this is what they want us to do. This is what the examiner wants to know from us. So before we start writing, it is always important to analyze the question so that we write relevant ideas, we write a relevant answer. Otherwise, it's not going to matter how good grammar you have or how good cohesive devices you have used if your ideas are not relevant. So let's go ahead to our first step, analyze the question. We are going to look at keywords. Keywords help us decide what the question is actually about, and keywords are always present in the concept. So we are talking about young people. We are not talking about older people, and we are not talking about children either. We are talking about young people. So roughly we are going to assume it is 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds or 18 to 25 category of people. They are encouraged to work or travel for a year. So this is the issue at hand. To work or travel for a year. And they have given us a specific time period. And the time period is between finishing high school and starting university. So these three things should be on our mind before we start writing or planning our ideas. So the next step is to plan our essay. Never start writing anything before planning your essay. It is really important to save your time and for you to not get distracted and write irrelevant things. So what we are going to do is we are going to think about one advantage and one disadvantage, since that is our task. So the advantage is they will get exposure, of course, if they move out and they go to a separate country or they work for a year before they join university, they will get a good exposure to the practical world. Whereas the disadvantage could be that they might lose interest in studies. So you might be wondering why just one advantage and disadvantage. So this has been my personal experience. I have appeared for the exam 3 times. And every single time I have written only one idea, explained it and given an example. Why does this work? This works because band descriptors of task response and coherence and cohesion, as we have explained in a previous video for an agree-disagree essay, they tell us to write one central idea, explain it, support it, extend it, and give more details for it. So if you give more than one idea, you will not be able to extend or support your idea, and your ideas will not be developed enough. So in short, ideas have to be developed, extended, and supported. There should only be one central idea in each paragraph. Even though the question might say advantages and disadvantages, still the IELTS examiner prefers to get ideas in body paragraphs which are properly developed. And it has been my personal experience appearing for the exam 3 times. And it has also been said by ex-examiners, and I have seen a lot of students who had really good English knowledge of the English language fail to get 7 bands because they wrote multiple ideas. So now that we have established that, let's go ahead and start writing. We know that the struggle is real and we are with you each step of the way. You can ask us any questions that you want. You can contact us and we'll try our best to help you. So step 3 is start writing. Now that you are organized, you have analyzed the question, you know the keywords, and you have done your planning, we are ready to go ahead and write. So we are going to look at everything structure by structure, step by step. So your introduction should be, the first sentence of your introduction should be paraphrasing the concept, and then you have to state one advantage and then state one disadvantage, the ones that you decided while planning. So this is, again, we are repeating the question and this is the task. So our paraphrasing should be paraphrasing of the concept, this part. We should write in our own words. We should try to use proper synonyms and we should try to change the grammar as well. So young adults in several nations are advised to take up work or travel for the period of a year before joining higher studies after graduating from school. So how we have paraphrased and used synonyms. Now we are looking at vocabulary also, as we stated earlier in the video that we will be looking at vocabulary. So instead of young people, we are using young adults. So that is a synonym. In some countries, apart from some countries, we are using several nations. Encouraged. The synonym for encouraged over here is advised. To work or travel for a year. We are using a different collocation, take up work or travel for the period of a year. The period of a year. So we are using a different collocation. And then between finishing high school and starting university studies. Before joining higher studies after graduating from school. So we have changed the sentence framing over here. So we have paraphrased it quite effectively. We have used different words and in some part of the sentence we have also changed the grammar. Now our second point, the second thing that we are supposed to do is state one advantage. So the positive outcome of the aforementioned concept is that they get a good exposure to the world through this idea. So instead of using the same word advantage, we are using a synonym positive outcome. So this is again vocabulary. Whereas the negative side is that they might lose interest in studies. So instead of only writing disadvantages, we are writing negative side. So we are properly using synonyms. Now let's go ahead and look at body paragraph 1 structure. So you have to restate the advantage you gave in the introduction paragraph. Then you have to explain it. And then you have to give a relevant example for it. So your explanation and your example should be relevant to the advantage that you gave in the introduction paragraph. Let's go ahead and read body paragraph 1. So let's go ahead and read body paragraph 1. The benefit that can be reaped from the approach in concern is the experience that they could get, which might not be available in educational institutes. So our idea for advantage was exposure, and this is what we are writing about, the exposure that they might get once they go out after finishing school. A good exposure. So we use the word exposure in introduction, so we are going to change it again in order to get better points in vocabulary. The benefit that can be reaped. So instead of advantage, we are using this phrase, again, changing the word. From the approach in concern is the experience that they could get, which might not be available in educational institutes. So instead of exposure, we are using the word experience. And we are comparing it to educational institutes because we are trying to make the contrast which the concept requires us to make. So this is a title line. This is a title line and it has to include our main idea only, no explanations. Whereas a second sentence should have an explanation. So if you're aiming to score above 6.5, if you're aiming to score 7 or higher, then you must know that this is a very important distinction. The first sentence of the body paragraph versus the second sentence. The first sentence should clearly line out your idea, and the second sentence should be clearly your explanation. They should not look similar. They should not be simply paraphrasing of each other. They should be different. So let's look at our explanation. There is a difference in practical work and theoretical lessons. Although the knowledge gained from schools is indispensable, actually going out in the field of work and meeting people teaches application of classroom concepts. So here we are talking about the keyword work for a year between high school and university studies. So we are talking about the concept of working. So our answer has to be relevant to the concept. We should not go in a different direction, and our explanation should also point out in the same direction so that the examiner knows we are talking exactly about what the question wants us to do. So this is an explanation starting from here up until here. So this is an explanation of our idea. Now we are going to support it with a relevant example. To give an example, Oxford University Student Performance Report of 2018 showcased how those students who worked for a year before joining undergraduate degree performed much better in practical assessments than those who directly joined after school. So our example has to be relevant to our idea and to our explanation as well. So this is our example. So how is this relevant to our idea over here and our explanation? So we are talking about students performing better in practical assessments. So over here also, in our explanation, there is a difference in practical work and theoretical lessons. The knowledge is indispensable, but going out in the field of work and meeting people teaches application of the classroom concepts here. Application of concepts, that means practical sessions. So here we are talking about practical assessments, and our example is directly relevant to our explanation, which is relevant to our idea. So this is a proper body paragraph 1. Now let's go ahead and see why is this example a good example. Ex-examiners, what is their opinion on this? Examples should be specific and not generalized. You shouldn't go ahead and just say something like students who go out have better practical results as compared to students who don't. So you're trying to give an example, but it does not really point in a specific direction. It does not say anything about anything in particular. So your example would be generalized in that case. Second thing, personal examples are allowed, but they're not very effective. So every IELTS Task 2 question will tell you support your answer with personal experiences and relevant examples. So personal examples are allowed, definitely, but if you are aiming for a 7 or above, they are not very effective. They will not help you gain a higher band. They are allowed, I will repeat again, but they will not help you get a higher band. So it is better that you give non-personal examples. The third thing is to make them specific, and how to make them specific as it was given here. So now we are going to see how to make them specific. You can include the name of a place or a year or both. So what did we do in this example? We included the name of a place, Oxford University, or you can just say an institute over here, Oxford University, and we gave a year, 2018. So we made our example specific, we made it non-personal, and we made it very relevant to our explanation. So it makes this example very effective, and it will help you gain really good bands, especially if you're aiming for a 7 or above. So now we are going to see body paragraph 2 structure, which is So the body paragraph 2 starts by restating the disadvantage and then explanation and example, just the way we did for body paragraph 1. So it's not really very tough. So we are going to go ahead with the idea that we decided initially. On the other side, the loss incurred is the possibility of getting distracted and ultimately failing to complete education. So this is again a title line, and it should be only about the idea. We are looking at the explanation now. Young people who take a break in their education could find their jobs more satisfying or their travels more entertaining than their studies, leading to the possibility where they do not go back to studies at all, and as a result find it difficult to get employed later. So this is our explanation, and it properly gives us details and explains how the loss of interest in studies happens. Now our example. To substantiate, BBC News survey of unemployment showed a considerable percentage of jobless youth consisted of people who did not get degrees, as they got indulged in traveling after school and later failed to get hired due to lack of qualifications. So here we have explained and we have supported our idea with a specific example, as we have stated the name of an authority also is fine, an institute is fine, a survey, a place, a country, and we have tried to make it specific. So this is the body paragraph 2. Now we are going to go look at the conclusion. So the conclusion also has a proper structure to it, and it should start with a proper discourse marker so that the examiner knows we are going to end our essay now, and we are not allowed to write anything new in our conclusion. So the two proper discourse markers are in conclusion or to conclude. Do not write any unacademic markers like to sum up, all in all, in a nutshell. They might be allowed, but they are not very effective. So it's better to use either of these two. Then we will restate our advantage, restate our disadvantage. So basically in conclusion, you are just paraphrasing things that you have already stated earlier. You are not supposed to write anything new. To conclude, this essay has discussed that the positive side of this approach could be to gain practical knowledge, and the drawback is losing inclination towards studies. So notice again the vocabulary, how we have used synonyms. Instead of advantage, we have now used positive side. Instead of disadvantage, we have used drawback. So, and again we have used synonyms or different collocations in this case for stating the advantage, and here we have used different collocations and different words to state the disadvantage. As we discussed earlier, we will also be looking at grammar. So grammar has two parts if you read the band descriptors: grammatical range and accuracy. So today we will be focusing on grammatical range. So in order to have a good range, we should use complex sentences. Now, what is a complex sentence? A complex sentence has one independent clause and one dependent clause in the same sentence. They could be connected by a conjunction or they could not be connected by a conjunction, but we should have one independent clause and one dependent clause in the same sentence. Now let's understand what they are. Independent clause is part of the sentence that carries meaning and is grammatically correct on its own, whereas a dependent clause is part of the sentence that does not carry meaning and is not grammatically correct on its own. It depends on the main clause for both the things. And for further clarification, I'm telling you a clause should have a subject and a predicate. So do not confuse clauses with phrases. Now let's go ahead and read the entire essay and look for complex sentences. I will be giving you a few examples today, so that would help you write complex sentences in your own essays and increase your grammar band. Our first sentence: young adults in several nations are advised to take up work or travel for a period of a year before joining higher studies after graduating from school. So if we read this part of the sentence, it is easily understandable on its own, and it is grammatically correct on its own. It does not need any other addition. Whereas this part of our sentence, before joining higher studies after graduating from school, this is a subordinate clause or a subordinate or a dependent clause, which requires this clause for meaning. So our first sentence itself is a complex sentence. Then our second sentence, the positive outcome of the aforementioned concept is that they get a good exposure to the world through this idea. Again, this is an independent clause, whereas the second part is a dependent clause. Whereas the negative side is that they might lose interest in studies. Whereas is used to show contrast, and in this case it is also acting as a subordinate conjunction, forming a subordinate clause. Another example is, although the knowledge gained from schools is indispensable. So if I only tell you this much and then I stop, so it does not really give you a proper meaning and it seems incomplete. So this is the knowledge gained from schools is indispensable is a subordinate clause. And the second part of this sentence, actually going out in the field of work and meeting people, teaches application of classroom concepts. This is an independent clause by itself, carries meaning, is grammatically correct. So this is an independent or a main clause. So here I have given you 3 examples of complex sentences. You can apply them in your own essays, and this will help you improve your grammar band. So this is our lesson for today. You can read the entire essay altogether if you want, and I hope it helped you understand a lot of things. So now let me tell you a few things about My IELTS Dream. What are our services? So at present we are doing essay and task 1 evaluation. We do it for really cheap prices. We do speaking sessions on Skype, and we also do one-on-one tutorials which are really helpful to understand concepts of IELTS. Our Facebook page is My IELTS Dream, and our email ID is myieltsdream123@gmail.com. You can connect to us on either of these 2 platforms. Please follow our page for further free material. We also publish a lot of free material. We publish evaluated essays which you can read and do some self-study, and it will help you further improve your writing scores. So that's it for today. Stay tuned for more from My IELTS Dream. I hope you liked this video, and please subscribe to us, follow us. We are not on YouTube yet. We are sorry for that. We are soon trying to be on YouTube. And apart from this, please follow our page for free material. You can contact us. We will help you with your IELTS for free to a certain extent. We will help you solve your doubts. We are mainly concentrated on the writing part. We work with both academic and general candidates. So whoever it is that needs help from any part of the world, we are always there for you. Thanks a lot, and stay tuned for more from My IELTS Dream.